I'm a little bit psychic, so I
Okay.
really believe in you have to manifest what you want, period. Particularly in the design world, you have to believe in yourself and really manifest who you want to be.
Welcome to the Culture Lounge podcast from Assouline, a curated sonic experience that brings together artists, visionaries, and tastemakers in conversation from around the world. I'm your curator, Assouline. Today, for our final episode of the season, we're learning about design with Aerin Lauder and Alfredo Paredes. Aerin Lauder is a businesswoman and entrepreneur who has spent more than 2 decades working as a style and image director for Estée Lauder. She's also the founder and creative director of her own global luxury lifestyle brand called Aerin, which specializes in home decor, beauty, and fashion. Alfredo Paredes is a designer and creative director who spent 33 years at Ralph Lauren, creating environments, experiences, and products for the brand stores and restaurants worldwide. Since then, he's launched his own namesake design studio, designing interiors and furniture for homes, restaurants, hotels, and beyond. I can't wait to hear what they have to say. So, let's enter the Culture Lounge.
Hi, Alfredo. I'm really excited to be talking with you today because I've known you for many, many years, but I've never really had the privilege of having this kind of in-depth conversation with you, especially over Bloody Marys at 9 o'clock in the morning.
I know, I love it. I love it.
That was your suggestion.
I feel like we had dinner at the Polo Bar one time.
I think we did.
With like
and
80 people, like it was a lot of people, but we sat right next to each
yeah,
other.
that was something for Ralph Lauren,
That's
or
right.
it was, I don't remember, but I've always admired your work. And when I think about Ralph Lauren, I always associate you with Ralph Lauren. And
that's
Ralph is
nice.
probably one of my
Thank you.
most favorite brands and
Thank you.
people. And I think what they've created is incredible, and you were a huge part of it.
Amazing, amazing place.
Where did you actually grow up?
So I'm first generation Cuban American. My parents left Havana in 1960 or 61, and I was born in Coconut Grove, Florida,
Oh, okay.
in a post-Cuban Revolution, full of regret. They were missing Havana big time, but I was growing up among hippies and,
That's
in the Grove.
yeah.
So,
That's so funny.
yeah, totally different.
So different. I know. I grew up in New York City, literally 5 blocks away. And I lived in Europe for a little bit because my father was ambassador to Austria. So that was a wonderful experience because living in Vienna at the
amazing.
age that I was in high school. So I could really travel, learn, be
Amazing.
exposed to everything, which was great. But I did grow up in New York City and had that experience.
Yeah.
It's very
I
different.
mean, I always wanted to move here. I don't even know how I ended up here, but at 18 years old, I was like, I'm out. I went to art school and then came here.
It's so funny. And so then you stayed at Ralph Lauren for almost how many years? Like 20?
34.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then what gave you the...
You start to have the revelation where it's like, am I going to be here my whole life? Is that it? Am I going to retire here? This is it? This is it? Because it wasn't terrible by any stretch, but you started to feel like if I was going to do anything else,
Yeah.
right? Anything else.
No, it's so important to dream. And people always say, like, your life starts when your comfort level ends. And it's really important, I think, sometimes to take steps and challenges and do things outside your comfort zone in the box because that's what life's about.
And it went from 1,200 employees to, at the end, I think I had at the peak 300 employees just from me, in my divisions.
Yeah.
So it's a lot. It moved further and further away from being creative in a weird way to really managing as a Fortune 500 company. And it was like, and then I had my daughter at 50, and I was like, I don't want to go to Hong Kong one more time. I don't want.
Yes.
I don't want.
I did the
that.
same thing. I was at Estée Lauder for, I always joke I was there for 25 years working, but I was probably there for 50 years because it was in my blood. My earliest memory is probably my grandmother's scent.
Right.
I was always surrounded by the company and
It's amazing.
beauty, and I, 12 years ago, did the exact same thing. I had an amazing experience at Estée Lauder, but it was a great opportunity for me to take what I've learned and to really follow my dream. And
What
to
was
create-
that like? What made you like? Was it hard to?
It was impossible. I mean, because not only, you leaving a company that you'd worked for so many years, but also to leave a family business. Many of my family members were working in the company at the time and still are today. And I just remember I had this vision of creating a color story with accessories, and that was really the beginning of the brand.
Right.
And I presented it, and they thought I was crazy, and they said, listen, people were always asking me what was in my makeup bag, what are the items I
Right.
couldn't live without, and I wanted to create that ultimate makeup bag and the product and maybe a hairbrush. And
That's
so
amazing.
Fabrizio, who was the CEO at the time, basically said it's an interesting idea, but you have to focus group it, write a business plan, and present it to the board. So it was, as you said, a
Yeah.
big corporate environment, and I did. And what was fascinating was that people associated me with home and style and family. So it was areas that I was passionate about. And when we were going through our questions, like how did we first get involved with home, my favorite toy was my dollhouse. So it gave me the kind of green light to follow my dreams. And since then, we've created a wonderful lifestyle brand, very much inspired by what Ralph Lauren had done.
That's great. I know. I
great.
watch it. It's amazing.
Thank you.
I mean, for me, it was this sort of, my DNA was so wrapped up in working there and being part of that company, that brand, that it was like extricating myself was really challenging.
Yeah.
And
But it gives you like kind of fire in your belly to do it. Like
Yeah,
I think
and-
it's exciting and challenging and scary and all those emotions.
I mean, people thought I had a nervous breakdown. People did honestly act like, what happened? And meanwhile, Ralph was totally supportive.
Yeah.
It's not the first person that has worked there that has gone on to do something else. So he
Yeah.
was like, I support you, whatever you want to do.
That's how you can tell he's an amazing mentor and boss
Yeah,
and
yeah,
friend.
yeah. And I just decided that I wanted to have more flexibility and, dream what I wanted to dream
Yes.
for a minute,
And what was your first kind of interior experience in the sense when you were growing up that you realized, like I was saying that I love my dollhouse and if I could still play with it, I would. But
You know
was
what I
there-
thought?
What?
So I was thinking about that. I went back and I would see the Estée Lauder advertisements, those ones by Victor Skrzynski.
And that's a great story because I just shot with Estée Lauder this week on a special project that is so exciting. And when it comes out in 2 months, you're going to be blown away because it kind of is beauty history. But it was
But those
interesting.
those
Victor-
rooms where she was
Yes.
sitting, and what were the models? There were several models, right? I remember
It was
Willow
Karen
Ba-
Graham for about 30 years, and Victor was always the photographer, and he would come on set with a pinstripe suit and a sweater
remember
wrapped around
Victor
his
well.
shoulders. And Victor's partner was an interior designer, and they would use locations based on different
And those
projects.
were so inspiring to me.
And that was the world of Estée Lauder, and that was what Estée, it was fascinating. She had advertising with lifestyle elements way before it was even kind of a trend.
And it was major.
It was major, and she one time was launching a collection of candles, and it was just a shot of a room. There wasn't even candles in the picture, and that's so funny that it was such a
But I
source
was
of
thinking
inspiration.
a gay teenager, what were you doing? I loved all
Looking
those.
at Estée Lauder ads.
Well, I would see them, and they were so inspiring, and they were in the 70s, right?
Yeah.
Like it was earlier, and I was inspired by them. And I mean, Ralph will tell you that he would be inspired by movies. I was obsessed by television, so I could watch. I know what if the Beverly Hillbillies house looks like, soup to nuts.
Dallas,
I know
remember
all of
Dallas.
those interiors. I remember.
So funny.
Auntie Mame, I can tell you every inch of that house, those apartments that kept changing, which I imagine was one of the apartments at River House. Do you know what I
Yes.
mean?
No, it's true. All those old movies like High Society, when
Yeah.
you watch it, you like remember the chaises at the pool
Right,
and the diving
everything
board
about
and all
it,
those
yeah.
different things.
So what's your design process? How does it get started?
Well, it's funny because I don't always refer to the same thing for inspiration. Sometimes it's a destination, sometimes it is a movie, sometimes it's a photograph or a friend. And depending on what we're working on, for example, if we're coming out with a fragrance, we start doing mood boards and decide what the fragrance will be inspired by, whether it's like a lilac bush or is it a beautiful garden in England. And from there, we kind of then develop the products to support it. So it's we definitely try to always do a lifestyle concept. So the colors that we work on for the fragrance also go into the world of home and accessories for fashion. So it becomes very much one world. And I think that's where I got a lot of the inspiration from Ralph Lauren. When you would walk into these kind of wonderful calico-inspired bedrooms, there was beautiful baskets and quilts, and I think
all the
that's
elements,
all
yeah.
the elements, and that's something that I definitely try to do. And we have a few little stores, and they're these jewel boxes that have this incredible lifestyle experience. So
People love
inspiration comes from anywhere, and then we really start off with mood boards, and from there we then develop product, create samples, and we always set it up. We always recreate what it will look like in a store in our office, so we know
really
exactly.
important.
Yeah, so we know exactly what we're creating.
I found that if we didn't do that, it didn't work.
It's funny you say that because just recently we did a very spontaneous trunk show, and we pulled together some products, sent it to a club, and it wasn't as perfect as it could have been because whenever we do anything, we always set it up. But we've just opened up a new store in LA. We're opening up our shoppable showroom. We had a lot of different moving elements at once, and we thought, okay, how hard can it be? We'll just put it all together. And you're right. It did, I had to go there and actually personally put it all together to make it look perfect.
Well, because it's magic. It's
Yeah.
like you have to sprinkle the magic or it doesn't. A lot of times it doesn't work.
And it's also the experience. People always talk about when you walk into one of our stores or Ralph Lauren store, it is that whole world. It's the experience of it, and it has to be perfect. It really does.
Yeah. And for me, as far as like where I get inspiration, I mean, it's funny, I was thinking about that. I'm from the era where you would be in a design studio and someone would have to go and get books and rip out pages of magazines
Mood boards.
and the AD
We
and
all
mood
did
board.
mood boards forever.
Now
Now
I live
everyone's
on
doing it on Pinterest. I know.
Mine is Pinterest, and I couldn't figure out Pinterest at first. It was super annoying. Like I couldn't figure out how to work it, but now I figured it out. And what I found, it's been really helpful for clients because you can share it with them.
Yes.
You can even purchase off of Pinterest, which I didn't really understand at first, but you could put the stuff on there for them, and it's just really helpful. But I remember being in these rooms where you were just piled with stuff and digging through piles of blankets, piles of rugs, fabric samples, mannequins rolled in with.
But we still do that. It's funny. We have an area in our office where it's all the prototypes and all the samples come in, and even a lot of the inspiration pieces. And there is still something about touching a three-dimensional product that
Right.
the only way sometimes. I mean, I love visuals, but I do love when you get the sample in and you see the scale and the color and the texture. I think there's something really.
It's nothing more exciting than that moment when you start to see it all.
Yeah.
What didn't work?
Our brand is very much about surprise and delight, and it's a lot of storytelling, a lot of heritage, and it's very feminine. When I talk about flowers, it's such a source of inspiration. Most of our fragrances, we have about 24 fragrances, and most of them are florals. So our customer is very feminine. It's all different ages, but she likes a more feminine, pretty sensibility. And a couple years ago, we did this black marble home collection, and it did not sell. And, some people did buy it for their husbands, but generally, it wasn't our customers.
You scared her.
We scared her. We're not we don't, everything, our packaging is pale blue and our beauty packaging is pale pink. We do have a black, collection of pouches and bags and shoes, and those do quite well because it's a neutral. But generally in the world of home, things personal objects that get too masculine don't generally work for us as well, which is interesting because our customer is very consistent. I mean, she is really shopping cross-category, and she has certain sensibility, and she loves heritage and storytelling, quite traditional. And you really have to listen to your customer. You really have to take their lead. I mean, because that's what, it's all about.
Right. I remember when Ralph said to me one time, I want to put teddy bears on mannequins' heads. And I was like, for real? For real? Like, really? And I took the challenge, and then it became this thing that we do everywhere.
And do you do that? I mean,
it's all over the store. At Holiday, they take a mannequin, and they, because they do the
It's
teddy.
not funny that I don't even notice that, probably because it's just.
It's part of it's been going on for decades.
And you don't even
But when I
realize.
first came out, he first asked me, I just looked at him like, this was one of those challenges where I was like, okay, that's either going to be great, or I don't know if I can figure it out, but I figured it out, and it's something that people love. I mean, they even have like, a bear shows up at different events, and serves coffee or whatever, but it's a thing.
And what is your favorite room in your house? Like, is there a room that
Right now, my daughter's room.
Really? Why?
Because she's there.
And does
It's
she
her.
have a very specific sensibility of what she wants? Like,
Well,
does
she is an equestrian, and she's a 10-year-old. She does. But I remember when we moved, I was worried that we were at Grace in New York City, and I was worried that she wasn't going to want to move. And all she said to me, I just want pink and purple, which is exactly.
That's so funny.
Pink and purple. I was like, okay, pink and purple. I'll give you pink and purple. And it's her spirit's there. I mean, I love the whole place, but her spirit's there.
No, it's true. Children's rooms are really fascinating. We do this project with Pottery Barn, Baby and Teen, and it's probably one of my most favorite projects I work on because I think a child's room is such a happy place. And it's funny that you say that. Because when I moved to Washington, D.C., I was in 9th grade, and I did not want to move. I was living in New York City. I was so happy. I had my friends. And my father got in a position at NATO under Reagan, and so we moved. And the only thing I wanted to do was do my bedroom, and I wanted it to be pink chintz, and I wanted canopy beds and a dog, and those were the 3 requirements to move.
That's
And we
right.
got them, all 3, and I still have those beds, and it's just funny.
And it was great,
because
right?
It was great. It was a really happy memory. And recently, is there anything that a place you've recently traveled to or seen in the world of interiors that have just been so inspiring to you? Is there a place you've gone to that you just?
Well, I always like the Amman Resort in Utah, the
Yeah,
Amangiri.
that
It's
is
one
beautiful.
of my favorites. And it's really not about not the design, it's the space. It's
Correct.
the place.
It's really special. We wweren't for a friend's 50th birthday, and
Weren't you moved? I was like,
it was amazing. The sensibility was so
yeah,
peaceful.
and the way it's built, was designed in a way that the desert's taking it back.
Yeah.
Like it's the
It's
algae is
breathtaking.
growing and everything's sort of becoming more like the desert, which I think is great.
Yeah.
It's really beautiful.
The
So I like
colors.
that. I also used to rent this villa in St. Bart's. It used to belong to Rudolf Nureyev.
Uh-huh.
There was this weird, after he died, of course, on the windward side, there was like this weird hippie house, this woman, macrame hanging baskets everywhere and lace tablecloths on everything. And, and it was so amazing
Yeah.
to be there. Windward side, wind blowing through everywhere. It was great. Hammocks, sheer curtains, like.
But it's so, just recently I went to Mexico City for the first time, and I went and saw the Barragan, and the color and the unexpected juxtaposition of different
Beautiful.
elements were beautiful. And when you think about how long ago it was done and how it was so ahead of its time,
Right.
It's so fascinating because, you think about your taste and your sensibility. And I think with interiors, it's so interesting because you still can get, as you said, that like excitement and
Well,
move
it's stepping
when you see
into it.
something.
It's just seeing it in real life.
If you had to give advice to someone who was starting off a career, what would you say?
See, I'm a little bit psychic, so I
Okay.
really believe in you have to manifest what you want, period. Don't get lost in the weeds of I think today a lot of people feel like they have too many choices, so they don't make any. Mm-hmm. So it's like, particularly in the design world, you have to believe in yourself and really manifest who you want to be. Does
I
that make
agree
sense?
with you because you have to stay focused and be passionate and, as you said, like really.
Well, I had no other choice.
Yeah.
This is who I was going to be. It's like, predestined. So if you believe it, make it happen. Mm-hmm. I feel like it's just an observation I have of younger people where they get adrift a little bit.
Yeah.
And then they don't. They get discouraged. And I'm like, well, that's not gonna work.
No, I agree. But you have to work hard. I mean,
Right.
it's people always say you have to work really, really hard to get to where you want to be. It just doesn't happen. And I think that's
And lean into your mentors. If you have mentors or people that are there for you, really lean into them.
yeah. No, for me, it was interesting. It was also family. It was very much my grandmother taught me
course.
so much. I mean, the one thing I regret is I never really was in a meeting with her. I never really had the opportunity to work with her because when I graduated from college is when she got older. But I always remember product around the house and her attention to detail. And she used to say, it's her name on the bottle. It has to be the best it can possibly be. And
That's great.
she really felt the importance of touching the customer and all that. And then, in the world of non-family members, Jane Hudis, who I'm sure you're familiar with, was my first boss I ever worked for. And she taught me so much about hard work, detail.
Which you were lucky that you were able.
She was great. She was really, I would come into the office and there would be a little Post-it on my door and it would say, 8 o'clock, please see me. Like meaning, I got in at 8:10, but she got there at 8. And it was just, I will always remember those little Post-its.
Yeah.
And she really taught me so much about branding and marketing and being consistent.
That's great.
And then my uncle was very, influential with me with advertising. When you talk about the Victor Skrybnevsky images, when I was creative director of Estée Lauder, I worked very closely with him on all the advertising and logo always on the right and product photography and always wanted to make sure you could read the logo.
Right.
It's really
And it was so. I mean, that's amazing, right? That you were able to you were born into it, but then you got to also to be part of it.
Exactly. And it was interesting. During COVID, I worked on a book with my sister for the 75th anniversary of Estée. And they were celebrating 75 years of her brand. And I did it with Assouline. And it was the most amazing project because it gave us the opportunity to really learn more about her. And there were so many things I didn't even know. Like
That's
she talked about the dream and creating this incredible world. I mean, she was fascinating. I mean, she would have this Fortuny blue and white box that she would have her mail delivered to her in the office. And we saw a picture, and I couldn't figure out what was this box. It was so beautiful. And they said she had this wonderful idea of having her mail delivered even in a pretty way. So her whole idea was attention to detail, and she used to say, everything can be beautiful if you take the time.
That's great.
And even if you have just a coffee at your desk, make sure it's a pretty coffee cup. Don't
It's
save it for a
amazing.
special occasion.
It's amazing that it's continued. That a family has been able to keep it going.
Yeah, no, she and my grandfather started this in 1946, and she was the daughter of Hungarian immigrants. They didn't really speak English, and she had this dream and this vision and this passion and hard work, and she created Gift with Purchase.
That's great.
I mean, there's some great stories about her with, just her dedication. Like there was this very famous story where she couldn't afford to create samples, so she spilled Youth Dew all over the floor. I think it was of Saks Fifth Avenue, because she was like, I want people to smell it, but I can't afford samples, so I'm going to do it my way. And she spilled it all over the floor, and everyone was like, what is that scent? That is so amazing. And
That's
that was how she
amazing.
launched Youth Dew, and still to this day continues to be a cult product. Andy Warhol loved it. Madonna loves it. It's
That's
fascinating.
great.
It was very was advertising with a nude woman for the time when it was launched, I think in the 50s. It was very controversial. So she was a brilliant mentor, and I always feel sad that I didn't have the opportunity to work with her, but I learned so much about her and her
That's amazing.
love of home. And I think she was probably the first person that taught me about home, because we spent so much time together, and we would always go on family vacations to her homes. And I learned her love of flowers and entertaining. And
That's great.
we have a townhouse in New York that we still use for special events. That was her last home,
That's
which
great.
is
It's beautiful.
extraordinary.
That's beautiful.
Well, I have loved talking with you because I have known you for many years, but now I feel like I know you much, much better, and I've learned so much.
Yeah, and it's
and
so great
such an
to
inspiration.
it's so great to have one-on-one with you, because I feel like even when we were at the Polo Bar, I couldn't hear a word you said or something. Well, we have to do it again.
Adore your work.
Thank you. I'm so happy that I got to do this too, and we have to do it together more.
Definitely.
Okay, without microphones.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of Culture Lounge. If you want to dive deeper into design, Assouline has many books to guide your way, like The Living Room by the Design Leadership Network, Michele Bonan, Signature Details, and Maximalism by Sig Bergamin. I'll leave you with a fun bit of design trivia. Did you know that ancient Roman architects used mirrors strategically to reflect light throughout spaces? This technique, called borrowed light, is still used by designers today to make rooms appear larger and brighter. This episode concludes our first season of Culture Lounge, and I wanted to thank all of you listeners for joining me as we explore different corners of creativity across art, fashion, travel, cuisine, and more. Thank you as well to all of our guests who shared their time and expertise throughout the season. I hope you found inspiration, passion, and hopefully knowledge of something new. To learn more about the world of Assouline, where culture meets luxury, head to assouline.com. À la prochaine!